Hey everybody, welcome back to the second episode of the One Prescription Podcast. We're here with Sarah and Eric from CrossFit Nashua, Sarah from Green Horizons, and Dr. B, myself, from Blue Zone Health. And we're here to talk about the transition that is taking place when somebody commits their life to living a healthier life, getting the exercise they need, nurturing their body with good food, and getting some holistic health care where we're creating health from the inside out instead of the outside in. So where are we at today, Sarah?
Whoa. We just finished the second fit test. So the intro video was kind of one of the first things that we put out there.
What's a fit test?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, so fit test is a workout that we do on day one. And it's basically just a simple, quick little workout with rowing, some squats, some sit-ups, some push-ups, some pull-ups, or modified versions of those movements, since 99% of people coming in here don't have push-ups or pull-ups. But either way, it's just a simple, quick little workout that we like to do on day one to give us a baseline. So it's basically just a baseline test, and then something that we can measure against in the future to make sure that we're making progress. So we got some proof. So
we just did the second one of that.
Cool.
The second
And what were the results? How'd you do first time compared to second time, Sarah?
So first time,
I feel like we need a drum roll for this.
I know, first time was 11:05 with a 12-minute cap. So I was almost there. I was nauseous after.
yeah, you were in a rough spot.
Do you
after.
remember how bad I looked? Like
Yeah.
all.
I remember it clearly halfway through.
He's like, I think you said like the color went from my face.
Yeah,
And
you-
I went from like, this is great to like, I'm not having a good
Yeah.
time.
It's like you start on the rower and you're like, all right, we're doing this. And then like halfway through, you're like, I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah,
I was
that was my
content-
experience too. Remember, I had got like a splitting headache. I thought I was having
Yeah.
a stroke my first time doing it.
And it's
Yeah.
not on paper, it doesn't look crazy.
No.
But man, like halfway through, I remember very distinct. I was looking at the corner of the box because I had to do incline push-ups. And it was like spinning. And I was like, I'm going to throw up on this floor right now. And like you were right there and you were like, hey, that was like really good. And I like, it was like muffled, like, ah. In like the back, I'm like trying not to vomit in public. So that was the first time.
So
That was-
11:05 for the first time, and what was the second time?
It was 7:15.
Dang.
7:15.
So that's almost 4 minutes off if my math is correct.
Yeah, almost.
Nice job. And that must have felt like a huge triumph. You didn't puke. Did you feel dizzy?
Like 5 minutes after, I was like, I knew my body was shot, but I wasn't nauseous. I wasn't like feeling like I was gonna hurl, but I knew I'm like, all right, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, you
like,
were. Yeah.
Yeah, I went hard and I was done for the day. I definitely was like more tired than normal, but I gave everything I got to it. So no,
Sure.
I felt fine.
One of the biggest things that I noticed watching your first go at it and your second go at it, which I think is an interesting concept, was your like workout intelligence, right? You paced yourself the second time.
Yeah.
You didn't go balls out on the rower
Yeah.
to begin because you knew what was coming, right?
Yeah.
And knew how your body would. And I think that's a big part of CrossFit, not just about getting fit, but like learning your body a little bit more. And what an important part of health that is, to know what your limitations are, not have unrealistic expectations,
Yeah.
and be able to pace yourself like that. Knowing what you're capable of is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, the biggest thing, like I love the progress, your fitness improved. Like there was, proof of that. But the biggest thing too was the wall squat, which we didn't even mention. But
Oh, yeah.
the mobility and like as a coach, that's what I get most excited about, like your technique. So you were able to do a wall facing squat. The second time you did it,
Yeah.
which means that your mobility stability has improved immensely, and that transfers to long-term health, which that's kind of why that's why I do what I do, is because I love the long-term health stuff, and so seeing that was pretty awesome. And then it even transferred to the workout too.
Yeah.
Your squats look better, everything just looked better.
Everything was better. And it's funny because I didn't notice I really feel like I haven't noticed a ton of physical changes until I rewatched the first one. And then I watched the second one again, like yesterday. And I was like, oh, dang. Like, okay. It's not a lot, but it's a little noticeable to me.
Noticeable, yeah.
And the, like what you just said is like speaks to the cognitive shift too. So like you saw an improvement, like there's no denying it.
Yeah.
But in your head, you just said you felt like you didn't make any changes, you know, and that's a part that is really important with working out, because if you don't get your mindset right, then you're never going to feel like you get better.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
and so that transition from I feel like I'm not making progress or not making huge changes to like, wow, I did make big changes. Like, that's pretty cool.
And that's how I felt. Like, I went in with I felt like a reasonable expectation for crushing it would be a 2-minute save. So like 9:05 instead of 11:05. And that was my personal goal, was try to get 2 minutes with the expectation it would probably be around a minute. That's really what I would have been happy with that. Like, I was like, that's improvement, right? It's progress. So, I mean, if you watch the video, at the end of the video, like, I used a little bit of colorful language because I was shocked.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that did help me even shift further into like, okay, this is changing me. This is different, and you can see it, but I could feel it. And then, I mean, like, proof of concept.
Yeah.
For almost 4 minutes. That was crazy. Yeah.
So speaking of proof of concept, what are the other things? Because fitness is a piece of this journey, of course, and a big one. But what other things have you noticed? What have you seen changing? What are you excited about since you started this?
My sleep schedule has improved tenfold. That is awesome. And I'm like naturally waking up sometimes before my alarm, and like, I might as well go to the earlier class, you know, and then I show up. Like, who have I become? That's wild. like even my husband's like, are you okay? So sleep schedule has been huge, because I also feel like less irritable during the day, and I feel like I can predict my day a little bit better. Like, I know I might have a little bit of a lull here, and I'll plan for that, and maybe that's when I like do some laundry around the house, and then once I get my energy back and I finish out my day, I go to bed by 9, and I don't know, it's given me some stability. I really like mental health. I didn't really think I was like in super need of a mental health shift. Like, I am a little bit of an anxious person and deal with imposter syndrome, like, you know, a lot of people do, but the shift there has been shocking. I really didn't anticipate, and I think I've kind of said this before, it's like, if you can get through that workout in the morning or like in the day and not die, it's like, well, then I guess I can deal with this person who's raging at me in Hannaford's, or like whatever the stupid like stimulus is. Feels a lot more approachable when I just died on the floor in your gym. Like,
Yeah, that's why I like, if you force yourself to do hard stuff, it just transfers over to everything else. Like, every morning I crank the shower down all the way, and we have a really freaking cold shower. But yeah, I just do that and take 10 slow breaths, because I know I don't want to do it, but I mean, A, it wakes you up real fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then B, it's just, you start every day with something hard that you don't want to do, and it shifts your mindset.
Yeah.
I will.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I will say also my headaches.
Yeah.
Like, my headaches have always been an issue, and I have noticed they're not gone, but I have noticed since at least getting adjusted, probably a combination of like regular adjustments and eating better, and maybe strengthening muscles, in my body. Like,
well, cardiovascularly, your body is changing rapidly, and that has a lot to do with headache health.
And they're noticeably better.
Cool. I was going to say that it was exciting that you brought up sleep, because number one, when I was doing CrossFit at 5:30 in the morning, that was like the best sleep habits I ever had. I recently read a book by some Walker, I forget his name, something Walker, Why We Sleep. And just the importance of sleep and the science behind it. And you got me thinking about like, it's so easy to sleep because you've actually physically exhausted yourself.
Yeah.
And clinically, it's something I hear multiple times a day, every day in my practice is like, I don't get enough sleep, or I'm not a good sleeper, or I have insomnia. And I've learned to start asking, like, what are you doing all day? Right? Like, what's your day look like? Did you wake up, watch the news, go to work, come home, watch the news, eat dinner, and go to bed?
Right.
Because no shit, you can't sleep. You didn't use any energy. If your kids, when do your kids sleep the best, Eric?
Yeah, when they've
been at the beach
busy,
all day, they've been swimming in the pool, they've been playing outside.
Right.
And we know that they're going to sleep really well when they do that. And how do we expect ourselves to expend very little energy throughout a day, fill ourselves up with, calorie packed food that is for energy, not spend it, and then expect ourselves to sleep? It's not going to happen. So I think that's a really good learning point that you're experiencing, and good to see it in action. And going to help me be mindful as a healthcare provider to say, like, maybe your sleep isn't that you're deficient in Ambien, right, and need a prescription. Maybe you're not sleeping because you're not using enough energy to sleep. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
I think also there's so much. First of all, I notice on the days that I don't make it to the gym, I'm like wide awake at 11. I'm like, what is wrong? And then it's because I haven't, even though I've been on the go, it's not the same. It's not the same. Like maybe I had like 8 meetings. No, I've never had 8 meetings a day, but like 4 meetings and an appointment, and I had to go make returns. Even though I'm running around, it's not the same as like throwing your body into the crucible. It's just not the same.
And as torturous as it can be, it's still very much you time. And I think getting that every day is important too, especially with a business and a home and kids and everything else. Like, a little bit of time dedicated to yourself is really positive.
I will say also, and I don't know if this is a normal thing, but it's like the 1 hour of the day where my brain is off.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about prepping for that conversation I have to have, or wow, I have to make sure I make it here, or this needs to be delivered to this client now. It's like an hour of nothingness, and it's lovely.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, where it's like a form of meditation almost.
Yeah.
Like an easy way to tap into like quieting your brain.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, and that feels almost addictive. Like,
yeah.
And it's in the morning, so I feel like it gets me in the right headspace. I typically work out in the morning. It gets me in the right headspace for the day. Like,
for sure.
I'm clear. My body. My dad describes working out as like a shower for inside your body. Mm-hmm. I kind of dig that, and I was like,
everything out.
Yep, I shower the inside of my body, shower the outside of my body, and like, let's go tackle today.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. I like that a lot. So I want to shift from the working out side of this to like the healthcare, health management side of this, and talk about like what you've learned or how your eyes have been opened by getting care at Blue Zone Health, right? Like some of our ideas might seem rather radical to the general public who's been sold a bill of goods about where health comes from people who consistently provide the worst healthcare in the world, but understanding a less allopathic approach to things, right, and a more vitalistic. So we're less about treating symptoms and understanding where they come from, and we're less about avoiding sickness and more about a salutogenic model where we're trying to improve your health, right? What's that look like for you, and what was it like? Like, I often am quite certain that I sound like a crazy person to some people when I talk to them, right? Like, we're going to do health entirely different, and this is going to be a big pill to swallow for you, but the proof is in the pudding, right? The statistics, the numbers don't lie. We're not healthy doing health the way we're doing it here in the United States. So what do we think the problem is? And I think that's also pretty obvious too. So I want to know, like, what has it been like to like transition from your modern Western medicine approach to health to what we've been doing with you at Blue Zone?
So like you said, proof is in the pudding. I can't deny how I feel. Right, and I think that's the number one thing people need to hear is it's working for me. I do feel like I understand my body more now than when I had like a team of doctors working on my head. Like a team of doctors working on my head. I understand more about, you even walk me through like muscles that I didn't take anatomy. I don't necessarily need to know, but that hands-on, like here's what's connecting to here. I can tell you're really tight through here, you need to go get a massage. Like, that level of understanding of my body has helped me kind of understand almost when I'm gonna feel rough. Like, if I was in the car all day, guess what? I'll probably have a headache the next day because we talked about like how stiff you can be when you're like this all day or at a desk all day. And I don't know, I guess like I've been dealing with migraines and headaches for a decade. And this is the first time I feel like I have an understanding of what's going on.
Sure.
And so the other thing is, it, like you said, it does sound like really radical. And I went into some things with skepticism, and I can't deny how I feel. Like I
Right.
went into acupuncture like, okay, like
Yeah.
I've heard it works for people. I've never had it, and I trust, my acupuncturist Eileen at your practice is incredible. And I kind of told her, I was like, I've never had it done. These are my issues. We talked for an hour and a half about everything in my health history, which was so hands-on and I loved. And then after 4 sessions, like noticeable difference in even more improved sleep, even more improved headaches, even more improved like pain around my cycle. Like it's working. And I still get like whoa about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that wow factor hasn't worn off yet, but you don't know until you put yourself in it. Like
For sure.
people really need to embrace like trying it. You know what I mean? Like you don't know until you try.
And it's like with my experience with it too, a lot of like alternative health type things, they're often like the simple solution, and it seems like too simple, but it's like, well, yeah, that's what works,
Right.
And
you just try sleeping for 8 hours.
yeah.
Try drinking water. Yeah.
And so to have like a practitioner that understands those things, like the core benefits and the core things boxes you need to check for health, like that's huge to have someone guide you through that.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of noise, and I think a lot of typical doctors might not even think about, oh, your muscles are tight, you should see a massage. It's more like,
Right.
well, let's try this medication.
Here's a
let's
muscle
try this.
relaxer.
Right.
By the way, you're gonna feel like a zombie all day. Like
Right.
what?
Yeah.
When you brought up in the past having a team of doctors working on your migraines, I just so wonder, like, what did that look like? Like, what was their exploratory process? What were they analyzing? What kind of test did they run? Tests?
Yeah, I had testing
Okay.
done.
What'd they test?
So it was a is it a CT scan?
CT or MRI? Most
So
likely.
both.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was 12, 13, I think, because my headaches were, I will say, in the doctor's defense, I have a very rare version of migraines, so I understand why it was like, this is a little weird. But it looked and appeared as if I was having strokes at like 16. That's
Sure.
what these migraines looked like. So obviously they're gonna scan and make sure I don't have like a tumor or something in my brain, and I didn't. But then after that got answered, it was like, we'll journal your food. Okay, so I did that. No triggers were identified. Okay, well, try this medication. Okay, didn't work. I feel like a zombie. I realized, this is, if I can do a little anecdote here, it was an antidepressant. I didn't know that until 2 months ago when my friend told me she was on amitriptyline, and I was like, do you get migraines? And she's like, no, it's an antidepressant. I was like, what are you talking about? No, I took that for my migraines. And she said, Sarah, I went to my doctor for my mental health and they prescribed me amitriptyline. Of like the top 10 antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications you can take, it is the most likely to cause weight gain, the most likely to make you foggy, and the most likely to impact sleep. And I was on that at like 16, 17 years old. And I remember feeling awful on it. And I
Shocker,
went to the
right.
doctor and
Wow.
said, I can't even get my schoolwork done. I can't do this. Put me on another medication. After the third, I left, went to another doctor, and guess what? We went through the medication cycle again with new medication. And it was like, that's the team. It was, try this for 3 months, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. One put me on a blood pressure medication without really ever looking at my blood pressure history, which tends to run low, and my blood pressure bottomed out. I was puking in the toilet for a day. Like, no warning of any of it. Like, this is the team of people that
That's
I
insane.
trusted for
Yeah.
so long.
And I want to be clear. I'm not challenging people or doctors or medicine, but I am challenging the idea, right, that we took this super allopathic approach. I mean, which was basically, let's throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks.
That's
right?
honestly what my treatment
And I
has been.
also
Yeah.
challenge the idea that they prescribed you these things and you didn't know what it was going to do to your body, why they were doing it, like what sort of effect they have. I'm not even against medicine, right? Sometimes medicine
I'm on
is
one
what
right
keeps
now,
people
and
alive.
you know that.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that, but I don't think it should be our first avenue. And I think the decisions that patients get to make should be well-informed ones, right? And you weren't well-informed. And that's where my big problem is, and what we're trying to do very differently. In fact, we're working on a new slogan about well-informed health. But, okay, we're going to try this medicine if you want to. But here's what it is.
Right.
Here's how it's going to act physiologically in your body that we think might help you. And here's what the potential side effects are.
Yeah.
Right? So this may or may not work. And I want to be in constant communication with you about like how you're feeling and how you're doing with this. If it's not working after X number of days, we're going to stop because it's certainly not good for you, right? But none of that is happening. They're throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. And if you're not a squeaky wheel, like, hey, you know what? I've been puking on the toilet for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to like they're not thinking about it, right? And
I
think
don't
that's
understand.
One of the other things you said earlier. That reminded me of a talk I had with the team yesterday at our team meeting was one of my every week at our team meeting we go around the horn, we talk about what we're grateful for, and one of my employees was grateful that everyone in their house got sick but she didn't catch the cold, right? And I think just while we're exploring ideas of healthcare and medicine, I think that was a really good teaching point, and we talked about this for a while about catching a cold and this idea, basic germ theory, which I'm not arguing that there are germs, but catching those germs, right, it doesn't necessarily translate to being sick. And avoiding sickness isn't where it's at. Because the reality is there's one person in that woman's house who's getting regular chiropractic care, taking care of her body, etc., right? So do you think for a second that she didn't catch one of the 5 gajillion viruses that were floating around with all the people that live in her house that were sick? There's just no chance that she didn't, right? Like if I swipe my finger on this table, I just picked up, 800 billion bacterial particles. Is it going to kill me? Is it going to make me sick? Probably not. Why? Not because I didn't catch it, because I just caught it, right?
Right.
It's because my body is adaptable and able to overcome that. And that's what we're trying to create with you. That's what we're trying to create in health at my practice. And I think it's a really interesting concept. I brought up a study. I didn't bring it up for today because I didn't know we'd be talking about this, but the basics of it were they took 100 people in a room, they aerosolized rhinovirus, right? Common cold virus. Every single person breathed that into their nose. They literally, inhaler style, put the virus in them, right? In a room. And that was 100 people. Did 100 people get sick?
No.
No, 67 people got sick, right? So is it a matter of catching it? Right? And should we be avoiding this? I just read a thing on Reddit today that said how disrespectful it is for somebody to be sick and get on an airplane. And it's just crazy to me that we've gotten to this point in healthcare and our understanding of healthcare that healthy means avoiding illness, right?
Yeah.
Rather than the salutogenic model of healthy means being freaking healthy and not being afraid to overcome what comes at you, right?
If I can, sorry.
Please, yeah.
So
get off my soapbox.
You're getting. I can feel the passion. That's right. I think this could go a little bit deeper even than just avoiding sickness because of again, did not know we were going to talk about this in the podcast.
Yeah, that's what we love.
But the way our economy and our society is set up is, and my dad always said this, he was a mental health counselor for 20 years and he left entirely, cold turkey. He said our medical system, our mental health system is focused on getting you back to work. It's not focused on getting you better. And I felt that. How can I, when I went through it, how can I be the most functional member of society while just band-aiding my problems, right? And so those people on Reddit that are it's so disrespectful for someone to be sick on an airplane are probably under the boot pressure of, I have so much work to do this week, what if I get sick? And that fear I hear all the time in my friends and family members, I can't afford to get sick right now. It's a figure of speech, but it's also for real. My sister is in the service industry and she got sick and she was devastated because she missed 3 days of work because she can't handle, you can't handle food, right? But that impacts her bottom line and her ability to pay her bills and her rent. And so that I hear, but I think it goes deeper.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I respect that. And there certainly is a financial toll on being sick and not being able to work. But I still think that if we were focused on health instead of the avoidance of illness, we'd be healthier. You'd miss less time at work. In fact, I know it. I knock on wood. I have missed so little work over the years. I mean, I had COVID, but and that is a time especially when it was unknown, out of respect for others, did take some time off to heal my body. But I think there needs to be a shift, and I don't like the way things are shifting right now. Like, how dare you be sick and be out in public? Like, that's going to happen. We live in a society.
Right.
If you want to avoid sickness, like, go build a treehouse and live in the woods and don't talk to people. But don't act like somebody is immoral for being ill and still needing to live their life. I think it's a really dangerous path to walk down.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to what we're doing with the one prescription is we're trying to create resilience. So whether that's like fitness, if you need to go climb a mountain with friends, like you can do that. If you need to be around someone that's sick, you can do it. If no matter, it's preparing you for anything kind of.
Yep.
In so many different ways, and that's the goal. And then the side effect is you live an abundant life you can crush it.
Yeah.
You got it. And in so much of chiropractic philosophy and my understanding of health and where it comes from, it boils down to adaptability. Like, what can we throw at your body that it will adapt to, right? Mm-hmm. And injuries and illnesses happen when we can no longer adapt to our environment, right? Mm-hmm. You're making people more adaptable. I'm making more people more adaptable. And I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. We should do an adaptability podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, how many weeks in are we now?
So this is like a little over 3 months.
Cool.
Right?
Cool.
June.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
A
we
little
did
over
we
3
did
months.
the fit test, the second one at about the 3 month mark, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Super.
we're over 3 months now.
In most of your folks that join the gym and do a first and a second fit test, do you see those pretty drastic improvements?
Yeah, it's norm.
Yeah,
That's the
you
norm.
expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like every time I see it, it's amazing. But it happens every time, especially if you put in the work like you have.
Yeah.
The only time I don't see it is if people are coming, once a week and they're not changing their diet and they're not sleeping well, then, it'll happen. But that's pretty rare because we try to, push the importance of that stuff. But yeah, no, we've had, one of the guys that works for you, I don't want to say his name, but when he started, he didn't finish. We did a 15-minute cap at that point.
Okay.
He stopped at like 12 minutes in, turned green, had to go lie down.
Yeah.
And then within, he couldn't do a push-up, couldn't do a pull-up. And then I think it was like 2 years later, he did the entire thing with pull-ups, push-ups, everything in 6 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's my goal is like by the end of this, I want to be able to do it because I did incline push-ups and ring rows.
Yeah.
Right? Ring rows? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be able at the year mark to be able to do like
Real
full
pull-ups, yeah.
full push-up and
Yeah.
like pull-ups.
Yeah.
Pull-ups is going to be the tough one, but I really want to get there.
No,
I mean, if you use a band,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think setting expectations is big. Again, going back to mindset, if you set the expectation in a year or whatever, I'm going to have pull-ups. And that's the first step that. And then you just work towards that and make it happen.
Yeah.
Talking about all of this, back on my soapbox for a second, but, and please divert me if we don't want to talk about this, but I was just thinking about what we're doing with you, right? And for anybody who wasn't part of this science experiment that we're doing, this would cost some money, right? Mm-hmm. And an investment of time, money, and certainly energy, right? And so it's so easy for folks to say well, that doesn't seem worth it to me, right? Mm. But when we think about the fact that the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is healthcare costs, right? And these aren't healthcare costs for people investing in their health. These are healthcare costs that are causing people to go bankrupt because they didn't invest a dime of energy or time into their health, and now they're suffering the consequences of it. And I would, if you could speak to how hard is it? Right? How much of an investment is this? Has it been worth it? Can you see the path that you're creating a much brighter future for yourself and your family by putting this upfront investment in your health? And is it worth it to you?
I don't know if there's enough words to explain how loud that yes is. Because I can feel like let's get real, my marriage has improved from going to the gym, going to the chiropractor, and eating better. My marriage, a lot of our little, toughs were around food, because I was very much like a experience eater, and like, I had a good day, let's go celebrate, get margaritas and Mexican. And he was very much like, I prepped taco meat in that fridge 3 days ago. What are you talking about? And now we meet in the middle. If we have something to celebrate, we celebrate it, but I'm eating that way, right? Yeah. And like, my marriage is better for it. My sleep is better for it. I have motivation to complete projects that have been looming over my head for 10 years. I've been writing a book for 10 years, and I have cranked out like 80 more pages. I haven't touched that manuscript in years, and all of a sudden I have this motivation to do it. Like, it is tough at first, absolutely. Changing anything in your life is going to be hard every single time. Doesn't even matter if it's like going to the gym, going and taking, getting your adjustments regularly. It requires time, and that's going to be hard. But if you can allocate it and make the change, you are going to notice changes beyond what even we're talking about here. Yeah. I really believe that.
Yeah, it's like the sales process of someone coming in, and like we give them a tour, we talk about their goals and all that. It's like, I want to tell them, like, I want to just ask the question, like, what would you pay for a better marriage, to eat well, to sleep well, to make more money at work, make friends, like all these things, like what would you pay for that? And then it's like, all right, yeah, under $200 a month, would you do that? $9 an hour, like that's worth it,
Yeah.
But yeah, the financial return on investment, I think, is definitely it's there, but it's hard to see it until you've experienced it.
Yes, it is. You really have to experience it. Because I was at the beginning of this like, well, I'll be like more muscular and have less headaches.
Right.
Which is true, but there was so much more that I just didn't anticipate to change.
Well, and just, you haven't had children yet, but someday, like, the ability to play with your kids, right, and do what they want and have the energy when they say, Daddy, come play with me, or Mommy, come play with me, like, you get up and do it because you can. And it's really sad to me that there's a lot of people who aren't able to do that. So I think it's a huge investment, and it would be cool math to figure out, like, all right, we know that healthcare is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Like, what does being sick cost versus how much does your life cost? And there's a switch. You're probably like 55 years old, right, where your healthcare costs start outweighing everything else. And I see this every day because I have a lot of seniors that I take care of in my practice, and I ask them, like, what's on the agenda today, right? Guess what they're doing? They're going to appointments all day long, multiple days a week, and they tell me it's like a full-time job. And we have a choice right now to not do that.
Yeah.
But we're quickly becoming convinced, because we're seeing our parents do it, right? If you're not in our world, that this is what you do. You just get old and you go to the doctor all the time because you're so sick.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's bullshit. We can do better than that.
I think you said last time you talked about how we invest money for our future. But I forget which one you said this, but when you get there, like, oftentimes you're so broken down from years of work and years of not taking care of your body, that what are you going to, you spend the money on? You're spending it on doctor's appointments and medications and
I think it was like a Dalai Lama quote.
Yeah, I totally butchered whatever that was, but I feel like that's what I'm doing, is investing in my future.
It reminds me of kind of a sad story that happened last week in the office. One of my senior patients who is getting to an age where they're becoming less independent, and they saved up quite a nest egg to pass along to their family, and their family's pushing for them to go into like an assisted living facility, and they said, because their health is failing, right? And they were crying in my room saying, like, I now have to choose between dying or providing a better life for my family, right? Like, they saved this thing up. They wanted to pay for their grandkids' college. They wanted their kids to have some financial comfort. And now it's like, I can choose to probably go die, right? And then also stress out my family. Or they're going to suck $60,000 a year out of my savings until I die. right? And like, what a shitty thing that is.
Yeah, that's a
and
bad
like,
choice.
if somebody, if we came to that person 30 years ago and said like, look, this
Right.
is, if we were the ghost of Christmas future, right, and said
Right.
like, this is what's coming, and you're at a crossroads right now. You can do this or you can do that. Like the choice
Yeah.
is so clear and obvious, and we owe it to people to get the word out to do this. So I hope we hit 1 billion followers by next week.
Yeah, and it's not even like a matter of if it'll happen, because if you're sedentary, if you eat like crap, if you don't take care of your body, it will happen. It's fact.
1 plus 1.
Yeah.
There's a huge scientific study going on right now called Life. Everybody is doing it.
Yeah.
And,
I like that.
I was like, wait, I haven't heard of this.
Called life.
and you can just see it. So, I mean, we see people every day in here. They come in, they're 65 years old. They've been taking care of themselves their whole lives. And you see them and you're like, oh yeah, you're like a vibrant 65-year-old. And then you see
Clean.
another 65-year-old who hasn't worked out their whole life, hasn't eaten well, and they look like they're 80. They can barely walk. They can't touch their toes. They can't get off the ground. And I mean, that's lifestyle. That's not genetics.
Right. And yeah, the great point about the genetics, because we get sold this bill of goods too, that right.
Right.
Like, it's just my genes. Well,
Yeah, there's so lifespan and like health span are obviously a little bit different, but 93% of longevity is lifestyle,
yeah.
and
Exactly.
7% is
7%
genetics.
is genetics.
Wow.
So I delicately call people out on that. Like, no,
Yeah.
you have a bit of a choice here. And then you get into the study of like epigenetics and what we surround our DNA with and how that changes. And boy, there's an awful lot to talk about. And
I like how we were like, this would be like a 20-minute episode, 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
yes. So, Sarah, it's super duper cool to watch you go through this. And again, snaps to you because you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Thank you.
You know, my wife, when I told her we were doing this, she doesn't hear this and get mad at me, but she was like, did you guys think about like what would happen if Sarah quit and like just didn't want to do it?
Yeah.
And I felt like very convicted, like she's not gonna.
Yeah.
And
It's a valid question, though.
right,
Yeah.
right. It was, and of course that's very much something my wife would think of that I would not. But
Same.
I kind of had a feeling. Yeah, because you and I didn't bring that up. Like, well, this could be over before it started. Yeah. But kudos to you, Sarah. It's not easy what you're doing, but it is worth it, right? And I hope you know that and feel it. And I hope this doesn't end with, you know, a year, you know, for you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
think
I
I said at the beginning, my goal is to create a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That's my ultimate goal.
Boom.
Yeah, and hopefully inspire at least one other person to take control of their health.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Motion to adjourn.
Team
Yeah.
break.
Woo!